start off and just sharing what we will be doing in this session about transforming the care economy. So we're going to have 4 parts to this. We do a little bit of introduction very quickly now. Then we will have the pleasure to hear from Amar to share some really exciting research on care entrepreneurship and care enterprises in the region. I will be sharing with you some preliminary insights on an exciting think piece about care economy, which Young Women is currently conducting. And we will hear from Nadira, who is a founder of a care enterprise herself. And she will be sharing her experience with us. And then we have a 20-minute discussion with all of you together. So for the session, you will need to have another technology element. Let's hope that's working. So please, if you take just 1 minute to log into menti.com and put in the code 69423219. So we really want to make this an interactive session. So you will have throughout questions where we want to involve you into the conversation. In the meanwhile, while you're doing this, maybe also just very quickly, if people need to get into another room, please just send in the chat. We will supporting you to do so. So I'll see some of you are already in menti.com. We are more than 50 participants for the moment. I see a couple of us of you joining, and there are 3 questions actually, just to get us started a little bit and let us make field care economy. The first one is, again, we would like to listen from which sectors you are joining us, because this is a very specific theme, speaking about care economy in the context of care entrepreneurship. So really important to see from what kind of sectors you are joining us. But also we would like, so let's keep it here, and you see in your Menti, you will have 2 other questions, which hopefully will help to bring this much more to a personal agenda as well. We want to hear from you where you actually get your care services yourself, but let's maybe stand still here a little bit. It's great we have lots of governments, policymakers here who are definitely needed to advance the care economy. We do have some businesses, entrepreneurs, great, some foundations, and a large group of others, which would be interesting to hear. What are others? Please feel free to put in the chat. Let's move to the second question, Amy. While I know we don't have everyone yet on, please still try to get on. Will be great for the future discussion of the session. Where do you get your family or your care services currently from? I don't think there is an economy out there that is so human-centric like the care economy. So we want to make sure we also hear from you. You are part of the care economy. Family members, this is what we see quite significant in our region here in Asia. There's no surprise that a lot of care services are still provided by family members. Very often, the majority from the research that we know is coming from women in these families providing care services or care giving to family members, children, elderly alike. But also we see some domestic helpers, nannies, very few public facilities, nor like 1 private services. It's interesting. So really the majority, I think, family care. And this is one of the key areas that we want to discuss today. Why is this? And what's the impact of this? How is this, particularly in the context of gender equality, women's economic empowerment, really impeding women to stay out of the economy? And I think it's probably also one of the reasons why our region is so low when it comes to labor force participation. For example, in some countries, less than 20% female labor force participation. So thank you very much for sharing this. And now a last question. We're going to be discussing care entrepreneurship, which is an innovation area to the care economy. But would be good to think in a much more broader sense from your side. What do you think? Where does innovation can come from to advance the care economy? We have heard from some of the speakers beforehand that this is one of the key areas that we need to address moving forward. Government can innovate, particularly on regulations. That's great. Corporates, we've seen the innovation power of corporates bringing new approaches. Clearly also entrepreneurs. Yeah, we know this also from other economies like the climate economy. So if I look at this picture, very much confirms that governments do have the responsibility in an ecosystem to provide an enabling environment for innovation, but the innovation power can come from the true ecosystem for many players within that. So thank you very much for giving us that first kickoff. And I hope that brings you all into sort of the setting on care and care entrepreneurship. We can close, I think, the Menti now, Amy, and just go back very quickly into the introduction. And I just wanted to share one slide before I invite the way more interesting speakers into the conversation here. So when we speak about care entrepreneurship or transforming the care economy through, for example, care entrepreneurship, there are different ways on how to do this, and there are different entry points to transform. I'm going to share my screen. Amy, if you can't, or can you share the screen, please?
Yes, I can share, but we're sharing your slides or Amar's?
Yes, no, first mine. So here we go. I think you see my slide. So I just wanted to...
Katja, we see the browser. Yes.
Sorry for these technical glitches today. Better now?
Yes, just not full screen yet.
So just very quickly to just bring us into the... there we go. Into the mode on what we are talking today about. Your answers have shown really sort of the ecosystem approach, the importance. And I think two of the key areas that we really want to discuss today in the context of businesses being in the room here is really the areas around care entrepreneurship, and particularly also the area of employer-supported care. What roles do corporates have to play, but really in the context of a wider ecosystem approach. And I know for some of you that might be a new area. So I just wanted to give you a quick definition on care entrepreneurship. So if we are speaking about care entrepreneurs, what we are referring to is really enterprises that are offering services or products that really help to recognize, reduce, reward, redistribute care burden, which is majority carried by women, not only in our region, but really globally. So this is what we refer to when we speak about care entrepreneurs or care enterprises. In order to make this really tangible, I think it will help if I'll invite Amar, who is the Associate Vice President of Intellecap, to share with us a really exciting research that they have done to show us what kind of care enterprises are in our region. So with that, Amar, I'll hand it over to you and let you either share your screen, or Amy can also take over the screen if you like so. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Katja, and good afternoon, everyone. I hope everybody can hear me. My name is Amar, and I work for Intellecap, which is a development sector consulting company operating across Asia and Africa. Intellecap is part of a consortium that is undertaking the research that Katja referred to, which aims at developing a care economy knowledge hub, as we are calling it, with the ultimate aim of stimulating the growth of market-based solutions in the care economy and attracting more capital towards them. So this is something that we are doing as a part of a wider consortium. And Amy, if you could move on to the next slide. The project has four broad objectives. So firstly, to address the knowledge gap by landscaping and documenting care economy businesses or care entrepreneurs in the South and highlighting their investment potential. Secondly, to raise the awareness and highlight the impact created by such businesses, especially the gender impact, given that women disproportionately shoulder the burden of unpaid care work, which kind of keeps them from the formal economy. I think, Katja, you referred to the low workforce participation that we see in our geographies. So it's definitely a very relevant topic for gender impact. Thirdly, and through the first two, strengthen the capacity of stakeholders, be they policymakers, investors, or support providers, to enable them to support care businesses. And I think we heard from Patricia earlier today that it is critical to build capacities of the ecosystem to support women and businesses in general that work towards SDG 5. So we hope to do that through this, or rather, we hope to contribute to doing that through this research. And lastly, to build a community of care economy researchers, entrepreneurs, business service providers, policymakers, and investors. So moving on to the next slide, I just spend a minute on what we mean by market-based solutions as applied to the care economy. And Katja, you referred to these a little bit. So these are companies, revenue-generating companies, might be profitable as of now or might not be profitable yet, but in a sense, they are revenue-generating that recognize, reward, reduce, or redistribute care work. So it can be an online platform that connects domestic workers to potential employers. It could be a company that provides off-grid, washing solutions or clean cooking solutions to displaced or low-income or remote communities. It could be something that improves the capacity of caregivers, or one that enables fair and transparent migration of caregivers. So those are a few examples of what care entrepreneurs or care businesses might look like. On the next slide, I'll just talk about the consortium very quickly. So this is a project that is being supported by IDRC and Open Society Foundations, and the consortium is led by Core Global, and we as Intellecap as part of it, along with Volta, Core Women, and Busara. So moving on to the next slide, just to talk a little bit more about the project. So this project really has three broad modules or three broad phases. In the first module, what we have done is we have mapped over 160 businesses across the focus geographies, which are Southeast Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Within Asia, we have looked at 4 countries in particular, and these include Bangladesh, Indonesia, the Philippines, and Vietnam. So we looked at secondary sources to find businesses in the care economy, and we also launched a call for application for businesses to identify themselves as operating in the care economy. So that's what we have already done. We are at the end of phase 1 or module 1. In the second module, what we have done is we have identified 60 businesses from within these 160 for more detailed profiling. And in the third module, we will identify a further subset of 20 out of these 60 for even more detailed case studies, which will involve interactions not just with the entrepreneurs, but also with the employees and with the users of these care businesses, to get a more holistic picture of the kind of impact that they have. And of course, the Knowledge Hub, which is an online resource, will be developed and updated throughout the course of this research. So what have we found so far? So Amy, if you could move to the next slide. This slide shows how the businesses fall across the regions from what we have seen, and across growth stages. So I would like to point out that we were specifically looking for businesses that are not at a very inception or a very pilot stage, which is why you see more of early stage and growth stage businesses that we have come across within these 160. You'll see that more businesses were found in Latin America, and the reasons for this is twofold. One is we have a wider geographic coverage in Latin America as compared to Southeast Asia. We are covering only 4 countries in Southeast Asia. So that's one of the reasons. The other reason that we found is that Latin America is much more urbanized than Africa, for instance. And some of these child care businesses, elderly care businesses, palliative care businesses, which are more urban in nature, appear more and tend to self-identify more, which is why we see more numbers in Latin America. So talking a little bit about what are the solutions that these businesses offer. So Amy, onto the next slide, please. What we see is that these businesses were broadly falling in 4 buckets. So be they, time or labor saving technology and products, affordable services for care and domestic work, technology and services to train care workers, and those that improve the conditions for domestic and care workers. So those were the 4 broad categories of businesses that we saw. And unsurprisingly, infant and childcare businesses represent the majority of the services provided, with with almost a quarter of the map businesses falling into this category. Moving on to the next slide, if we are to look at what's the impact that these businesses create, and a majority of the businesses can be classified as those that reduce the caregiver's burden, followed by those that redistribute, reward, and recognize. And I have a few examples on the next slide. Amy, if you could move on. So these are examples that we saw specifically in Asia. So we have the Fair Employment Agency in Hong Kong. We have Komodo Water in Indonesia. We have Happy Helpers in the Philippines, and more such. And all of these are showcased on the Care Economy Knowledge Hub, to the link to which I will paste in the chat shortly. So all of you are very welcome to visit the site and browse through the businesses and learn more about what they are doing. As a next step, moving on to the next slide, what we have done is, from these 160 that you will see on the website, we have already shortlisted about 60 based on the scale of their impact and the strength of their business model. And these 60 will be profiled in a bit more detail. And as I mentioned earlier, we are in the process of doing this even as we speak. So over the next few months, we will be creating more detailed profiles of the 60 businesses and even more detailed case studies of the 20 businesses. So hopefully all of this information will be available on the Knowledge Hub early next year, early in 2023. And I'm sure you'll hear from us and the wider partnership that we are part of, which includes UN Women and Value for Women that we heard from earlier. You will hear about the development of this Knowledge Hub. So, I urge you to, keep an eye out for how this is going, and you're more than welcome to look at the website and learn from it. And happy to hear any thoughts that you might have. Please feel free to reach out to either me or anybody in the organizing committee for any more details. But I'll stop there. Thank you for having me, Katja, and happy to answer any questions. But back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amar, for presenting that richness of information on that there are care enterprises out there, and they are providing solutions to this care gap that we have between supply and demand of care services. And I'll just before we open it up for questions, I'll just gonna deepen a little bit what you have been saying. So some of the information that Amar has joined indirectly fed also into some of the work that I'll just gonna share very quickly with you on a research that we have been doing with a couple of enterprises together, and which result in a bigger think piece on really in a way to analyze and see, can inclusive care entrepreneurship be a pathway to address gaps in the childcare sector in Asia and Pacific. So we have been really zooming into the particular segment of childcare. And just as a quick overview in terms of what we have been doing actually to get into this data and get more insights, more than data actually, is we have looked at 4 pieces. So we have done an entrepreneurship ecosystem landscaping, looked also at what sort of entrepreneurs are out there. But we have been also running a deeper 6-month program with care enterprises themselves, namely 13 enterprises, and really went with them through a deeper program, which I'll share in a second. We have also done a rapid policy assessment on what kind of care policies are out there to advance care entrepreneurship particularly. And we have also run an employer-supported care survey with corporates in the region. And all of this under the existing sort of policy frameworks and guiding frameworks like the SDGs, for the ones familiar in the space, the ILO 5R framework on recognition, reducing, redistributing, rewarding and representation. So with that all together, we came out with a couple of insights which could really help to inform much more the ecosystem on how to advance care entrepreneurship as a delivery mechanism to close the care gap. So let me just move on quickly. So what have we done concretely in the Care Accelerator, which is a very innovative approach and the first in its kind, in not only in Asia and Pacific, but we also hear from other regions now that they want to try it and they want to listen to our learning. So it's, I think, really something what is an existing model in many economies. And I'm sure, Amar, you can say this, Intellecap, like doing so many acceleration programs in the climate economy in different sectors. But in the care sector, this is not equally done. So we've thought in WeEmpowerAsia, let's try this. Let's see, why can the care economy not be a similar economy like any other economy? Let's start looking at the care economy as an economy. So we have brought these companies together who are on the screen here, and then Nadira, who will be sharing a little bit more of her own experience, was part of the program as well. So what we have been doing with them, we went through 2 tracks. One is really looking on strengthening their business model, understanding where their shortcomings are, and at the same time also working with them on how can they become more inclusive enterprises. And all of this together mixed, and we don't have time to go in depth here, will be part of the think piece and will be inform some of the insights and recommendations moving forward. But let me share 3 more things before I'll ask Nadira to share a little bit more. But one is, so I just want to use one of the things that we have seen and what came out of that think piece. So care entrepreneurship has benefits. Care entrepreneurship can be one pathway in the care economy to close the gap. And why is that? And what we refer to is, maybe you have been hearing this already, is the triple dividend in the care economy and the triple dividend of what care entrepreneurship can do. First, we have heard a lot about labor force participation. If there is more supply for care services out there, we do know that this is one of the reasons why women are opting out for the moment. So if there is more accessible and affordable care and qualitative care out there, there is a chance and an opportunity that more women can join the labor force participation. Second, care entrepreneurship in itself is a vehicle to drive decent work opportunities if regulated and provided in the right way. So there is an opportunity that these care enterprises can facilitate new employment opportunities. And thirdly, it has definitely outcomes on educational level as well, an investment in the future generation. So if we are investing into more quality of care, then this will have impacts on the society as at large. So with that, one of the key learnings out of the think piece and the work that we have been doing is there is an ecosystem approach that we need to apply. And I think that's nothing new, but we see it as we do in other economies. It's the same for the care economy. We need to build this ecosystem. And this is one of the first recommendations or insights on the next slide that we have seen. The ecosystem in the care economy is very nascent. So we really need to invest in that much more. We also see there is an opportunity. We see more enterprises coming up that are using technology and innovation. And we'll be hearing on one of them in a second. But there's also need for really looking at this from a government perspective on how can we make sure that these technology-enabled companies are guided in the right ways, have the right frameworks, and have the right enabling environment to provide really safe and inclusive care services. We also, as I said before, the ecosystem is nascent. We need to invest in entrepreneurship ecosystems like ideation, incubation, acceleration programs, almost non-existent in this industry. So that's a really clear recommendation. And we need to have more models that are reaching down to the most vulnerable populations, the rural communities, to the bottom of the pyramid communities, how we frame them sometimes. And we need to make sure that if we're supporting these enterprises, we need to make sure they are built as inclusive and gender responsive enterprises in the first place. And last but not least, we also see, and we have learned, particularly through the employer-supported care services surveys and our work with the private sector, that there is opportunities to leverage B2B markets, employers, and also governments as source of market expansion models for these care enterprises. But for the moment, we don't have enough data to actually quantify what's out there. So we have just nascent data, so we need to invest much more in that as well. So I'll keep it here. I hope that gives you a taste and makes you looking forward to the think piece coming out very soon. And to make it even more practical, I think this is a summary and an elevation of what we've learned from many care enterprises. But I think it's always great to hear on how does it work in reality. And Nadira Yusoff, I think, is one of the pioneers in the care economy and has really demonstrated through the work that she's doing with KiddoCare on how it could look like and how it's working in Malaysia. So Nadira, with this, I would like to invite you to share very briefly from your perspective a little bit about KiddoCare and how can we really use the care entrepreneurship model as a source for closing that gap and also particularly providing solutions to corporates as well. Over to you, Nadira.
Thank you. I will take about 5 minutes because I prepared some slides. If you all don't mind, I'm just going to share my screen right now. Okay. Let's see. Screen. There you go. All right. So everybody can see this. So hello everyone. I'm Nadira Yusoff. I'm the founder and CEO of KiddoCare. So we call ourselves the next generation childcare platform, and here's me sharing with you the kind of work that we've done and what we've achieved, trying to transform the care economy through building our own inclusive business. So, well, we're addressing the issues around care economy, and that's parents and care workers, and parent side, it's usually the quality of childcare, affordability, trust and reliability, flexibility. So where you cannot have all these things and the concerns cannot be met, women tend to leave their jobs, decline promotions, don't want to enter the workforce again. Then you have the care workers who are concerned about income. In Malaysia, care workers are among the most low paid workers. There's unstandardized skills and the safety as well as safety nets concerns for childcare workers, particularly. So we're talking about childcare workers because we're in the childcare space. There's not much career advancements, opportunities and flexibilities in terms of care. They are women, they're mothers as well. So they are looking at opportunities to have flexible working environment. And when we don't meet all this, we cannot meet the solutions, then we will have a rise in unpaid care. So what we have done as a platform, KiddoCare, is leveraging on our technology to basically solve or provide a solution for inadequacies in childcare. Really building a model that suits different types of needs by parents and also meeting the needs of care workers. So we've built a technology that allows parents to get different types of childcare because the different type of childcare, which includes on-demand, home-based, childcare centers. We work with partners as well. So technology becomes an enabler to connect and bridge parents' requirement to the solution providers that are best suited to their needs. So how we come into play, besides just providing the technology layer, is also to provide the onboarding process that basically certifies the childcare provider, whether they're individual or they're our partners and they own centers and houses that can actually take children. We provide the technology that allows the flexibility of making booking, finding the right carer for you, somebody that is personalized for the family. And we provide on top of that peace of mind, where we provide monitoring during the service. There's very strict procedures and SOP, and basically we're developing a standard that could help parents address the peace of mind. It has to be safe and it has to be reliable. From a carer's perspective, we also introduce our KiddoCare Academy that has different types of step up programs, so we can allow women. So we're right now just getting women to come on board first, and then hopefully later on include men as well. But basically, we allow women to come in and get trained on a basic level and become our carers. We improve their income. We have shown that generally childcare workers in Malaysia earn about 700 to 2,000 ringgit a month, and with our platform they earn between 500 to 1,500 a week. So that's the kind of income that they can make while enjoying flexibility of time and place, improve working condition, improve professionalism. They feel valued for the work that they do. They feel recognized for the job that they deliver, and on top of that, we put in career development program that actually allows them to progress all the way to become an entrepreneur themselves. So with our partners, our corporate program players, we actually have a technology layer that enables corporate partners to have different kinds of support for their employees. So why do we build this? Because we always believe that the childcare solution, it has to be inclusive in the sense that it has to fit the requirement of families. So for corporate partners, we allow them to have different options of childcare allowance for their employees, childcare credit hours or childcare subsidies, and that can be managed and distributed among their employees, and their employees have access to the platform and basically could choose any type of childcare programs that they want or childcare solutions that they want, and these are all managed within our platform. So this is how we're actually building or using technology to enable and transforming the care economy to something that works for parents, for childcare workers, and employers to support them. Thank you, Katja.
Thank you, Nadira, and as always, aspirational. I hope also to others, really interesting to hear what is actually possible. And we will have still some time to really have conversation and question. So what I'm doing, I'll just gonna put 2 questions in the chat, and please, this should be very informal as well now. So you have heard from Amar, you have heard from us and from Nadira. I think we really want to hear from you. What is needed if we want to advance more these kind of models that Nadira shared or Amar? What is important here, and particularly also with the lens to make them accessible to the poor. So not only keeping them into sort of higher class, middle of the pyramid models, but how can we bring these models and make them accessible to everyone? And particularly also a question to the ones in here in the room for employers, like I know there are corporates in the room. What are the challenges of for employers? And is care entrepreneurship a solution, or how could it be a solution for some of the challenges? So please, we'll stop sharing the screen. I'll put the question in the chat as well. And please just raise your hands if you want to share and contribute. I see also some of other enterprises in the room. Please come in, or any questions to the speakers as well. Just use on the bottom the raise your hand function if you want to.
May I ask Nadira?
Please go ahead, Cynthia.
Your KiddoCare concept really is very interesting, and I wonder if we can promote the concept here in the Philippines, because truly one of the reasons, or primary reason, why the women cannot join actively in the job employment or even in the business is because of the time devoted in child care. And if this is made available at an affordable price, subsidy, I wonder if this is subsidized by the government in your country, Nadira, because it may come up really very expensive too at the very beginning for startups, new families.
Yeah, so thank you, Cynthia. Let me address that. Yes, I'm actually a part of the AWEN network, and I was talking to, we've been talking with the AWEN Philippines about adopting the KiddoCare model in Philippines. But KiddoCare has only been around for about 3 years, and we've recently completed the Care Accelerator program, and now we're ready for expansion across the region. And we're certainly looking forward to actually sharing the model and implement this in other parts of ASEAN, of course. Well, with regards to subsidy programs, we do have partnerships with a few organizations that provides subsidies to the rural income families. We do have that. And we're working with different types of subsidy programs. So we do have corporate partners who supports subsidies in those areas that I mentioned. So companies actually provide either childcare hours where they acquire from us, subsidies or allowances that are all managed within our system for their employees. For low income group, we partner with foundations that raise money. So we actually run crowdfunding activities with the foundations, and then we'll identify the companies. So previously it was a little more expensive in terms of acquiring KiddoCare service because it was very personalized. But now we've made it very inclusive to also include different types of childcare services, which will allow the cost to drop. And this also includes home-based. So instead of getting somebody to come to you, you could drop at places that are certified, but you still enjoy the same peace of mind. You can still monitor through the app and things like that. So it allows the same kind of quality, but different kind of approach. We also have transit centers and community centers, and we turn, mosque into transit centers in which low-income families can drop in their children, and we have a circular model that allows our carers to participate in community work to help the low-income families. So we do have that. We're very lucky to have many corporate sponsors to come in and work with us as well. There is another question, if I can take here from Nindi. How could KiddoCare promote this in rural context? So that's one of the ways, by introducing the drop-off centers, transit centers, and community centers. So it's more inclusive now, and basically parents have got different types of choices for them to get childcare. Thank you.
Yeah, very interesting.
And yeah, and Cynthia, I can be a testimonial that Nadira's model evolved over the time since we started to work with her. So all of these questions are really great. And I'll just want, in terms of time, we have only 5 more minutes left.
I'm sorry.
And no worries, that's all great, Cynthia. But I just want to say,
I want to know more about the program, because the government here, or local government, also has a program, but more for the government employees.
okay.
And not, yes.
We also make the connects and share details if you want, Cynthia, after. I just want to make sure that everyone can contribute. And I see, Panchal, your hand is up. But I just want to share that Amy is going to put a Menti in the chat, where we have one question for you on what needs to be done to advance things like care entrepreneurship more. Please share your thoughts so that we at least can have a little bit of input from your sides as well. That would be really helpful. But let me hand it over to Panchal from Italy, India. Panchal, please.
Hi, Katja. Thank you so much. So, I'll want to probably touch upon the first and the third of this thing, just to brief. So my name is Pranjal. I'm from Italy, India. We work with preschool ecosystem. We train preschool teachers in urban areas and in rural areas and Anganwadis in India. So I'll kind of want to touch upon the first and the third aspect, where you're asking what's needed to advance inclusive care for the poor, and also, what opportunities can care entrepreneurship offer. So, my sense is that in India, you have the kind of care services, but unfortunately, the quality of those care services are not up to the mark. And if you go to the interiors more and more, you realize that people are now open to kind of, pay to some extent whatever is a bare minimum reasonable amount to afford to kind of avail those care entrepreneur care services. It may be, you know, in the field of childcare, it may be in the field of education, that is early childhood, or you know, basic health and nutrition facilities. So my sense is, you know, an availability of a kind of micro care center. It can be like a rural preschool, or you know, like a rural daycare center, which is not very large, but kind of satisfies the need of say a village or a panchayat in the Indian context. I think would be something which will be really helpful, because and you know, such organizations can be led by women. You know, can be led by women from the communities, from the rural communities, who have an understanding, basic understanding of you know, enterprise. Either they have seen it in their households, or you know, they have been facilitated by some able organizations, you know, for the purpose of running or providing services which are kind of adding value. And if at a larger scale you are able to ensure that the quality of services are great, I think it's a very large opportunity which kind of currently exists in India, specifically for you know, from a care entrepreneurship perspective, from a women empowerment perspective, and also from you know, making services affordable and accessible for the rural poor. That's my thought.
Thank you very much, Pranjal. Any comments on this, or anyone else who wants to come in? And please go also to menti.com. We really want to hear from you as well, to get your inputs, please, into this. But anyone else who wants to come in, please.
I just wanted to know, is there any way to contact the panelists if we have questions later on? If you can share any email IDs or something?
We can, but please, I don't see who's speaking actually right now. So if you just send a message in the chat, please, that would be great. So we can.
I've already sent my questions there, but since they weren't answered, I wanted to know if I could get in touch later.
Perfect. We will do this, Shubhumi.
Yeah, so I started my video. Sorry.
So what do we see here? Great. There I see you. So what do we hear from people? What's needed? Government policies. Cultural shift, yes. More accelerator programs to support enterprises. Subsidies, interesting subsidies. I'm wondering if there's anyone from the corporate world who wants to come in also in a way on how could the support employer-supported care services. We have seen a lot in the program that more companies, particularly in COVID, rethink sort of how to support their employees. Anyone who wants to come in from the business side of things as well, please. Don't see anyone yet. Public and private investments, yes, definitely. And one of the things also in the care think piece, which comes out from the work that we've done with the investors, is really sort of that balance and demand. Sort of governments need to invest to really de-risk some of the areas and to really enable also more private sector or classical investments into the care economy. Anyone from the investor space who wants to share perspective in here? I see we have some on the line. No? What else do we see? Yeah, partnerships, I think, is something what is definitely yeah, a focus from social entrepreneurs to innovate on business models to provide local, scalable, and high quality offerings. Indeed, I think this is also one of the things that came out of the work. I think, Amar, you also see this in the work that you have been doing in Intellecap, but also we have been seeing that some of the models are still kind of anchored in sort of the serving the middle part of the pyramid or the upper part and less down-reaching. So I definitely think this is a focus. Anything you want to reflect on that, Amar?
Yeah, that's right, Katja. I think we have made a conscious effort to look for models that are more affordable that are more accessible, so that they can really move to serving the low-income population. And I think I mentioned the difference in the level of urbanization between Latin America and Africa, for instance, and that kind of has a bearing on the kind of businesses that we see. So in Africa, for instance, we see businesses that provide clean cook stoves, or businesses that provide easier access to drinking water. So these are also care businesses, and there was a lot of internal discussion that we had whether to call these care businesses, because they don't really fall into what is traditionally looked at as care, as caregiving in terms of child care, elder care, palliative care. But these essentially are care businesses, because women in rural settings tend to spend a lot of time collecting water, collecting firewood, and this is care work that very directly affects their life. So such businesses are examples of businesses that can impact remote communities or rural communities, or low income communities. Not to say that such models won't exist in urban settings. There would be models in urban settings as well, but just to give an example of what a low income model would look like.
Thank you, Amar. And sorry, Trisha, I didn't see that you had your hand up. Please go for it.
Thank you, Katja. I put it down because I thought we were going to run out of time.
Okay.
Trisha Gray here from the Australian government. I guess, oops, we are going to be.
If 1 minute.
I guess just emphasize the quality side of things, because privatisation of care doesn't always end up with good outcomes. We've seen that in countries like Australia, where it just becomes a for-profit model. So I guess, not suggesting that any of the examples today would fall into that category. They all sound fantastic, but just something to always keep in the back of our mind. And it relates to government regulation, but I think it's more than that as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Trisha. And I think that is definitely a true point. And I think the work that Pranjal is doing is really kind of helping on that as well. So yeah, no, definitely quality is crucial in that context. So we'll see you back into the main room in 10 seconds. And then we will have a debrief after with everyone. Thank you. Okay. Back, everyone.